If any of you have been subscribed to this channel for at least about a year, then you know that last year I did an each episode review of The Mandalorian Season 1. However, this time I'm going to be doing a 4-part review, or 4-episode review in one video, instead of doing a single episode review each time. With that said, this is the first of 2 parts. The second part will come at the conclusion of the second season of The Mandalorian, so this is the first 4 episodes of Season 2, that is chapters 9 through 12, reviewed and gone over. With that said, let's get started. Firstly, I want to say this entire episode is chock full of Easter eggs, from the pod racer engine being used as a speeder bike, to obviously Boba Fett's armor, to the crate dragon itself, to the crate dragon's noise being a callback to the original version of episode 4 whenever Obi-Wan came in. Just about everything from this episode screams Season 1 Mandalorian, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that in any way as a negative, rather it's a positive. It's a great return to form when they never really wavered off of that form to begin with. Seeing Din Djarin and the child searching for other Mandalorians, coming across someone that they believe to be a Mandalorian, and obviously it's just a marshal for a town. It's a bit of a twist, and I remember when this episode came out and I saw the Boba Fett's armor, I recognized it as Boba Fett's armor, but I did not for a second believe it was Boba Fett, and for the 10 seconds that it was concealed and we didn't know the identity of the man behind the mask, I think a lot of people did think that it was Boba Fett. However, when it was revealed to not, I definitely did think that this was just another proof that the rumors had been completely and utterly false, and that there was no truth to them whatsoever. However, as is key with the rest of the season, as you'll come to find out, or as I hope you have found out, since this is a very spoiler-heavy review, that Boba Fett is in fact alive, and we do see Temuera Morrison, I think that's how you pronounce his name, in the last shots of the episode, with a gaffy stick, rifle, and several other weapons, though without his armor. And I'm very interested to see Boba Fett in the future of this show. I'm actually, incredibly excited. At first I was saying that they don't really need to bring him back. As much as I love the character of Boba Fett in Legends, in canon, he's pretty much relegated to simply a background character, as much as we may like him. While the Clone Wars did flesh out his character, I'm looking forward to actually seeing Boba Fett in action and actually seeing an expanded universe version of the character, though I think we'll need some backstory as to how he escaped the Pit of Carkoon from episode 6. But like with the rest of the season, I like that they are giving old legacy Star Wars actors, I suppose we can call them, returning roles in this show. Episode 2 is action-packed from start to finish, and while that is the case, I do think that it is the weakest episode of the season thus far, that being only 4 episodes. The action is interesting. I love seeing the New Republic X-Wings chasing the Razor Crest, and Din Djarin having to weave around through the ice caves and such, and seeing all of those spiders, which were, of course, concept arts from Ralph McQuarrie for, I believe, episode 5, but I could be mistaken on that. Don't quote me on it. It is interesting to see that. I know that there was a lot of issues with certain people in the Star Wars fandom regarding Baby Yoda or the child eating of unfertilized alien eggs, taking it to mean a support for abortion, which I don't quite understand. It's just him eating eggs. I eat eggs all the time. I try to eat eggs every day. There's no reason that I view my actions as abortion, but regardless, some consider it to be a cruel act. But I think that this is something that was meant to be an innocent joke, simply blown far out of proportion by angry Star Wars fans. But even more interesting, at least in my book, is the second appearance of Dave Filoni as an X-Wing New Republic pilot. I really hope that they actually take his character, or character quote-unquote, and make it a returning minor character that we see throughout the entire show. While this episode is definitely the weakest of Season 2 so far, it's still a pretty solid episode, and I would think of it as similar to Episode 2 or Episode 4 of Season 1, being not really all that important, however, still being a fun, action-packed episode of the show.
Where did you get that armor?
This armor has been in my family for 3 generations.
You do not cover your face.
Episode 3 is where the action really kicks off and the story actually continues. While yes, Episode 1 did see the quote-unquote return of Mandalorian, but it turned out to be an imposter, Episode 3 actually features tons of Mandalorians, and I'm actually seeing a very similar pattern that we see from Season 1, being Episode 1 is a fairly good and incredibly well-received action-packed start to the season. Episode 2 is a not necessarily bad, but not in any way as good, and Episode 3 is kind of a big action set piece involving a ton of Mandalorians. And man, seeing Katie's standoff, I believe is her name, the voice actress of Bo-Katan from the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, returning in live action to actually portray her character for a third time is phenomenal to see. The only issue that I have is potentially her age, though someone did make the argument that in Mandalorian culture, fitness would be important, so seeing someone who's in their 50s look like they're in their 40s is not too far removed as to be unbelievable. Seeing the issue and the Children of the Watch, the zealot splinter group of the Mandalorians attempting to establish quote-unquote the old ways is interesting and does fill up a plot hole that was introduced in The Mandalorian Season 1, considering that every Mandalorian that we have seen thus far has taken off their helmet from the Clone Wars to Rebels to comics, expanded universe, everything and in between have all taken off their helmets. So seeing Din Djarin saying that like Mandalorians don't take off their helmets and this is not the true way, when Bo-Katan simply says, I was born on Mandalore. Sabine, Pre Vizsla, all of them take off their helmets, so it's good that they established that this is a splinter group, and even with that knowledge, Din Djarin, knowing that Bo-Katan is a Mandalorian from Mandalore, still conscious and knowing that this is the case, remains fervent in his ways. You have to admire that in some cases, though I do think that he should probably, get with the times or at least understand that his group was the minority of the Mandalorians. But this also does bring into question another plot point or another plot hole that wasn't necessarily filled. By filling one plot hole with the Mandalorians not taking off their helmets, they have introduced another. In Season 1, through various flashbacks, we actually see that Din Djarin was rescued by members of Death Watch. The Mandalorians that rescued him from the B-2 battle droids have Death Watch emblems on their shoulder pauldrons. However, Death Watch, led by Pre Vizsla, freely took off their helmets whenever they felt like it was necessary. So the fact that there are Death Watch members who are also Children of the Watch, who then also don't take off their helmets, just raises more questions, though it does answer one big question, and I honestly don't know if Jon Favreau will actually fill up that first plot hole of the Mandalorians being Death Watch and also Children of the Force. But it's something I noticed, and it's something that I felt I needed to point out. And for some reason, by God, I don't understand why Twitter just has the simple need to cause controversy. Guys, boob armor in Mandalorians was a thing. Shadiversity made an excellent video talking about the historical accuracy of boob armor, and in his, he talked about penis armor, which was present in the medieval period of Europe, explaining both the functionality of armor, which included extra space for boobs, and obviously the fact that Mandalorian armor is not meant to be historically accurate armor, and that is not meant to deflect swords or arrows as medieval armor was, and also that the Mandalorian armor is modeled after the male physique. Simply look at Din Djarin's armor and you will see the male physique in his armor, and thus it makes perfect sense that Bo-Katan's armor would feature the female physique. So I'm not entirely sure why there's any controversy whatsoever. This seems to be by people who, first off, Bo-Katan has been around for a long amount of time in the Star Wars fandom. She's present in 2 TV shows before this, so the fact that Star Wars fans, quote-unquote, are making a big deal out of boob armor, I really think it's just this one Twitter account. And a few people who retweeted in support of it. And these people are not true Star Wars fans. They obviously have never heard of the character of Bo-Katan, which everyone who replied in the negative to their tweet mentioned that Bo-Katan has been around for a long time, and boob armor has been a thing for a long time. Nonetheless, the action in this episode is fantastic. Seeing a bunch of Mandalorians take on Imperials is interesting as well. Seeing the Gazanti-class cruiser, which is present prominently in Star Wars Rebels, but it's also present in Star Wars Squadrons along with several other pieces of Star Wars media. And in big news, we know that Ahsoka Tano will be in this season, though to what degree, I'm not sure. There's a lot of people that seem to think that she is going to be taking over caretaking of the child. I don't think that this is actually going to be possible, as the show wouldn't really be the same if the Mandalorian did not carry the child. So I think that he will meet with Ahsoka Tano, he will talk, possibly ally, and maybe in the finale, I think we will likely see Bo-Katan and some Mandalorians, Boba Fett, Ahsoka Tano, and maybe that one Marshal from the first episode, along with Cara Dune, among other allies that we have seen in the past, similar to how we did in Season 1, how all the allies from Season 1 met up together and went and took on the Empire. I also love the attention to detail in this episode. Since this was on Mon Cala, it makes sense that the only species that you would see there are the Quarren and the Mon Cala, which I think is actually incredibly interesting and a great attention to detail, and just proves that Jon Favreau was meant for this show, as well as Dave Filoni, as they both work hand in hand on this show.
An old transmission. Moff Gideon is dead.
No. This recording's 3 days old.
The fourth episode features a return to Savaron, I believe is the name of the planet, which makes sense as the Razor Crest is badly damaged. I know a lot of people wanted to see Ahsoka in this episode, however, going directly to Ahsoka Tano in only the fourth episode doesn't make sense. She's likely being saved for the latter half of the season, which obviously to this point is proven. And while this episode might not be necessarily consequential in the whole run of the season, it is a good action set piece, does feature a return to Savaron and obviously return with famous characters, and there was a bit with Moff Gideon at the end with another Imperial ship, the light cruiser. I have no doubt that in the next episode we will see Ahsoka, or at the very least Din Djarin will touch down on the planet that Ahsoka Tano is on, and we might meet her in episode 6 instead of episode 5. But without a shadow of a doubt, I suspect that Moff Gideon, along with a contingent of Imperial troopers, will be meeting Din Djarin on the planet and will fight him. Maybe Ahsoka Tano will come in at the last minute and save them. That obviously remains to be seen, and I like to keep away from speculating when it comes to such big things as this. All in all, I'd say that this entire season, or at least the first 4 episodes, set up both an incredible second season with the last 4 episodes, an excellent return of former characters like Boba Fett, Bo-Katan, and in the future, we will have Ahsoka Tano, though I do suspect that seeing Ahsoka Tano, we will also find Sabine Wren. I don't think we'll find Ezra, but I do think that this show is, or at least this season, is attempting to branch off into multiple different expanded universe TV shows. I think it's quite possible that at the end of this season, Ahsoka Tano will leave, and we will actually see Sabine Wren and Ahsoka Tano's journey to find Ezra. I think it's possible that after this season, we might have a Boba Fett series. I believe that actually has been somewhat confirmed. I actually don't know on that 100%, but I also believe that we will have a Bo-Katan series, or not necessarily a Bo-Katan series, but a series about the Mandalorians from Mandalore. All 3 of these are incredibly possible alternate shows that could be produced after this season has finished. I don't think that The Mandalorian is going to in any way stop. The Mandalorian is Disney Plus's flagship, and it will definitely continue to run for multiple seasons after this season. But I do think we would be foolish to discount the fact that they are clearly setting up multiple new shows. Now, if you have a Disney Plus account, this isn't too bad. The shows will likely run sequentially, one season for one show and then one season for another show in the months following. But again, this is getting into speculative territory. However, I wanted to point out that it seems very obvious that they are making more shows. And given the characters and themes in question, I am actually 100% on board with all 3 of these shows. The one show that I think I would be the least interested in is ironically the Boba Fett series, as Bo-Katan is an established character which we have seen grow from being essentially a terrorist to a freedom fighter and liberator of her homeworld. Ahsoka Tano obviously has been developed throughout the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and I'm very interested to see her next chapter, as she is likely going to die before the events of Episode 9. But the Boba Fett series, everything good that people say about Boba Fett is almost exclusively from Legends material, so seeing any new show with him is going to have to build back all of that cool lore that was present in Star Wars Legends. Not to say that that can't be done, simply that it will be a dauntless task that the producers of the show and writers of the show, and obviously Tamora Morrison, will have to accomplish, as Morrison is also not as young as he once was. Not that I don't think he couldn't, do what he had to do for the role, and they couldn't obviously use a stunt double when he's in his armor. It's just something to point out, is that Boba Fett, with the exception of perhaps the Clone Wars, contextualizing and characterizing him a little bit much in his younger years, there's almost nothing about Boba Fett in Star Wars canon. And to bring back a character like this, there's a lot of characters that are overhyped a lot, and I will definitely say that Boba Fett is one of them. But if they did make shows, I still would watch all of them, obviously. But these are the first 4 episodes of The Mandalorian. What did you think? Did you enjoy them? Are you excited for what is to come? Are you interested to see what Moff Gideon is using with the blood samples, including that of the child? Are you as excited as I am to see Boba Fett in action, Ahsoka Tano in action, and Bo-Katan's return back to Star Wars? Obviously, I forgot to mention earlier, but she is questing to try and find the Darksaber, so it is almost confirmed that she will return in the season finale to defeat Moff Gideon, though I am not sure that she will actually be able to do that, as a 2-season villain seems a little bit unlikely, but I do think Moff Gideon will survive again, but we'll see in the next 4 episodes of The Mandalorian. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you again next time.